Hello and welcome, all you footy fans. Let's look ahead at round 23. All the key matchups, all the stats that point to the winners, and we're going to put our tips in. There's only a few games left for quite a few sides, including mine. So let's enjoy what we have left. The first matchup is Fremantle v Adelaide at Optus Stadium on Friday. Funnily enough, there's no Thursday game this week. I think that's an AFLW exclusive. But it's more of a traditional time slot. The one game on Friday. What is it? 5 games Saturday and 3 games Sunday. So Saturday's gonna be a bumper one, isn't it? It's gonna be jam packed. Let's look at this little matchup here. Last 3 matchups, I think they've all been pretty close. Yeah, the one earlier this year where Alex Pearce put on an absolutely amazing block to get Freo the win. The last 2 matchups have been at Optus Stadium. Actually, no, one's February. That's a bloody preseason match. I hate when they do that. So there's only 2 games you can actually look at. It's preseason. That doesn't matter. Why does the AFL website do this? That's irrelevant. But also, the last game last year at Optus Stadium on Anzac Day was an 18-point win to Fremantle. So they do have the 2 wins. Well, technically 3, but it's a preseason game, so that doesn't matter at all. Yeah, first v fifth. This game means a lot more to Adelaide, obviously. Fremantle's sewn up top spot. Well, technically not, but realistically, I don't think Sydney's going to overthrow them. And Adelaide can finish as low as 7th, I believe, and get thrown right to the wild card. So this game means a lot to Adelaide. They want to win to keep in touch with the top 4 or just maintain the top 6, really. Both 4-1 over the last 5. The only game Adelaide lost recently they could have and should have probably lost to a plucky and spirited Tiger side. I didn't expect them to be that close. Wet weather did suit Richmond quite well, but anyway, they did have that blip in the map when they lost to the Pies a couple of weeks back, which could have sewn up their top 4 hopes a lot stronger. And then Fremantle just been cruising, really. Lost at the MCG to Melbourne last week, and at one of the games of the year. Disposals are pretty even per game. 54 to 52 inside 50s. Clearances slightly. Adelaide get more clearances, marks. All these 2 teams have a very similar profile. I mean, you can kind of see that with the way they play. They do play similar kinds of games. Adelaide have a lot more tackles. Obviously, Fremantle don't need to tackle as much. They do kind of win the ball pretty cleanly. And when they do like one tackle, they make it stick. Usually cause a turnover. I did tip Fremantle for the first time in a long time last week. And I'll back them in again this week. I don't think Adelaide's much chop in this game after the absolute dismal performance last week. They're just too uneven as a side all across the ground. They rely on their stars too much. The top 6 carries the rest of the side too heavily, and Fremantle does it a lot more by committee and a much more even spread. Given that, I will pick Fremantle. It will be fairly close. Probably Fremantle by 21, in my humble opinion. We'll see how it goes. Should still be an exciting game for a Friday night. Second matchup of round 23, the Richmond Tigers v the St Kilda Saints at the MCG. Man, what can you say about this one? It actually should be fairly even with Richmond's form over the last couple of games. They were out at sea a couple of weeks ago. You thought they'd get spanked for the rest of the year, but they've shown up pretty strongly. Their leaders have led the young side, the young emerging side, with a lot of their young talent actually playing over the last couple of weeks, so that helps. And St Kilda are absolutely floundering. Chance for the top 10 is still alive for them, but without Naz, and I'm pretty sure Mason Wood probably won't play either. A couple other outs, they're right up against it. Let's look at the recent form. It's probably all been St Kilda. Earlier this year, St Kilda got a handy win by 36 points. Last year, double up for the Saints. They only beat Richmond by 4 points. They had more scoring shots, actually, the Tigers, and this is kind of a similar time. Same time last year, same venue, and Richmond almost got the W. Last couple at Marvel have all been heavily in St Kilda's fashion, so Richmond are a real chance here. Form guide, St Kilda are 3-2, two disappointing losses back to back when they were unwinnable. The loss against Sydney, especially, they had a winnable game, let it slip, and they just didn't really show up against the Blues. And then the Tigers' only game they've won recently is against the Eagles, who can't win a game to save their lives. They've been blown out pretty heftily, except they've been good against Adelaide last week. So stats wise, it's going to be St Kilda. It's going to lean St Kilda's way because they've had the better form of the season. You could see the patch over the last couple of games. It might be more interesting. Yeah, they're going to dominate all key statistical categories, especially possession. Yeah, Tigers don't really get a lot of possession, unfortunately. They're a young upcoming side, so thing is, do I actually go against the grain a little bit here? Do I go off St Kilda completely? It does present an interesting dilemma. They only won by 4 points last year, but Richmond were a little bit more competitive last year, weren't they, overall? I do give Richmond a good shout. Do I back them in? It's actually more of a tough call than I'd expected to be. A couple of weeks ago, it'd be all St Kilda. You know, at the MCG, I'm going to give Richmond the win. Crazy enough, but I've gone off St Kilda. It's absolutely hopeless last week. I mean, I guess you can't expect that 2 weeks in a row, but yeah, without Naz and a couple other key injuries, they are a lot weaker side, St Kilda. Yeah, I'm going to give Richmond the upset here. Richmond by 14 points. Yeah, this will be very disappointing for St Kilda fans if that does happen. But yeah, your team's in danger here. Wouldn't go into this being too arrogant or too cocky about a win. Could go either way, realistically. The third matchup of round 23 sees North Melbourne host Geelong Cats. The third matchup of round 23 sees the North Melbourne Kangaroos host Geelong Cats at Marvel Stadium. This could be an interesting matchup too. North Melbourne really do have a chance. Last couple of matchups, I think it's all been one-way traffic. Last time they played, North Melbourne were actually right in it up until about three-quarter time. Then, obviously, Geelong kicked away and got the comfortable 49-point win. 13th v 7th. North Melbourne's season's barely alive. One more loss and it's done. Can they keep that passion and hope alive for their supporters? Hard to come up against a Cats side that still, I think, can push into a top 4 spot as well, or even top 6 especially. Inverse form line. 1 win, 4 losses for North Melbourne, 4 wins, 1 losses for the Cats, being the last loss that kind of upset, I guess, most people thought against the Giants. Spurs was pretty even. Average Spurs per game, sorry. Inside 50s, the Cats do more with it, obviously. Disposal efficiency, actually, North Melbourne have been better with the ball. They haven't butchered as much. The Cats do get more of it, but they tend to butcher it, I guess. But they get more inside 50s. I guess the connection's not there. Possession, more North Melbourne's way. So the North Melbourne's midfield could get a little ascendancy. Then again, Geelong has a very solid, rigid, and experienced backline that will probably repel most of their attacks. And they don't have a real key forward. Nick Larkey and Cooper Trembath have been on and off this year. They can't really back them in to score heavily with the chances they get. Maybe a Paul Curtis or another one of their forwards can pop up and assist a little bit. Down the other end, they got a bunch of dangerous forwards: Geelong, Myers, Manor, and Shannon Neal's coming on as a forward target. And Polkingham's done well with that, with Jeremy Cameron being out of the side. I mean, I think do give North Melbourne an outside chance to do something here, but yeah, well, being at Marvel Stadium, they do play a lot better there than other grounds, but still have to back the Cats in with this one. Should be fairly close. Cats by 26 points. Yeah, they'll just find a way to get it done. Expect North Melbourne to maybe even lead at three-quarter time or be right in the game up until three-quarter time. But the Cats will spam and accelerate at some point and make that a difference maker. Oh boy, we've got a Queensland rivalry match, the Q Clash. And the round 23, fourth or fifth game, I wasn't really paying attention, but we've got the Brisbane Lions playing host to the Gold Coast Suns at the Gabba. The Suns finally getting a win last week. A good, solid win over the Giants, even though the Giants could. I mean, they were in control for most of the game, the Suns. The Giants had a chance to pip it late and they couldn't get it done, so the winning feelings back at the Gold Coast after losing 10 in a row. So that's got to be a good feeling, and maybe gives them a little bit of confidence coming to this matchup. And the Brisbane Lions got back to form, handling the Hawks pretty comfortably after that blip in the radar against the Blues the week before. Last three matchups you'd expect all Brisbane. Yep, early in the year they won by 31. 20. It's preseason again. The final they played, they won by 53. So yeah, the Lions do tend to dominate this encounter pretty heftily. Last year, inverse form line, 4-1 over the last 5, and 1-4 for the Suns. They're a high disposal team, one of the high disposal teams in the competition. The Lions, they in the midfield and the defense, they can possess the ball pretty heavily. They get a lot in inside 50s, a lot of clearances, a lot of marks. Yeah, I think that kind of tells the stories, and they'll be able to possess the ball pretty strongly. They'll have that line share, no pun intended. Line share instead of line share, to be honest. The Suns do tackle better, obviously, because they don't have as much possession. I think it's going to be probably similar story. The Suns will probably have more tackles in the game, but they won't amount to much. I mean, I guess you could have a little more confidence if you wanted to pick the Suns this week, but I wouldn't really have too much. Brisbane by 41 points. Could even be close on that. Like, the Gold Coast Suns still have a lot of talent on the list, and they're playing quite a few youngsters, bleeding a few through this time of the year after the season's been done, but there's still a lot of high-end talent in the top half of their list, so they can show up and still be dangerous, but the Lions should be able to win this one by a good 40-ish points, I reckon. Yeah, 5 to 8 goals, realistically. Now, this is a blockbuster marquee matchup on a Saturday we've been looking for. There's been quite a few dull ones over the last few weeks. Seems like Saturday night has been given up a little bit by the AFL. They focus Thursday, Fridays mostly these days, but it's good to see a good key matchup on a Saturday evening at the MCG. We've got Hawthorn playing host to Collingwood I think I already mentioned the MCG, obviously. Both these sides are typically MCG sides, so makes sense that they'll be there. It is a Hawthorn home game, and they do have quite a few fans, but the Collingwood faithful will be in good attendance and will make plenty of noise, so Hawthorn will probably have a little more fans, but the Collingwood supporters can equal their noise and impact on the proceedings. Let's look at the last couple of matchups. Obviously, the pretty epic draw they played earlier in the year. Obviously, the reason Collingwood were in that when the Hawks were flying early in the season is obviously they were much more efficient with their set shots. 15 goals, 3 to 13 goals, 15. Most weeks that'd be a Hawthorn win. Last one before that was a comfortable win around this time last year. Pretty much, yeah. Would have been the same round last year, I reckon, yeah. 23. Hawthorn got a comfortable win. And then before that, Collingwood got that win as well. So looking at the recent form, does look like whoever the home team is does have the advantage. Both teams 4-1 over the last 5. Pretty good form. Yeah, Hawthorn been flying apart from not really turning up against the Lions. The Lions did have something to prove though, so they're tough to play in that kind of form. Had a pretty easy run. I mean, the Carlton game was supposed to be a good matchup. That was supposed to test them a little bit, but they were the better side from the jump. And they've had a few easy ones there. Richmond, Essendon back-to-back. North did push them actually in Tasmania. And then, yeah, they lost. And on the other flip side, Collingwood kind of few similar matchups they've had. They both played Kangas and Carlton in the last 5. Got that great win against Adelaide, a tough road trip. They do play the Adelaide Oval pretty well. Lost to Geelong. Yeah, it's no shame to lose to Geelong at the MCG. They're well-oiled machine, that Geelong side, and they got that good win last week against the Eagles. They did have quite a few out and had a few injuries on top of that, so good little win. Not against a real contender, but still good to pick up those points. Stats-wise, probably not going to be too much difference. Hawthorn do possess the ball a little bit better, more inside 50s, more clearances, better disposal efficiency. Kind of fairly even for stats, but yeah, it's Collingwood's bread and butter there, the tackle game, the pressure game, which can make, when they play against better sides, can make the game a bit more even than you'd expect. I mean, I'm going to follow the form guides here and say the home team will have the advantage. And then again, Hawthorn probably should have won that game earlier. They had a lot more shots, and Collingwood's efficiency, you can't expect to replicate that again. So Hawthorn will win. Will it be a blowout? I think a decent margin. Hawthorn by 34 points. I mean, Collingwood will try, and they do have quite a talented first 6, but few of their key veterans on the sidelines, and the backline's a bit decimated, so the young fellas do contribute quite well, but yeah, Hawthorn overall should be able to be strong enough to win this one. Oh boy, what a game to talk about. Port Adelaide playing host to Melbourne Demons at Adelaide Oval, which does give Port Adelaide some sort of sniff, actually. They do perform quite well at home and can trip up a few top sides on their day. So the Melbourne Demons will need to be they'll need to be wary and switched on the day. Yeah, last time they played was last year. That was the last game those two sides met, actually. It's been quite a while since they've encountered each other. Port did win that one by 25. Port, I have the recent record, the better record. Well, Melbourne were quite disappointing last year, so can't write too much in that. But last 2 games at Adelaide Oval being pretty close. Melbourne won by 7 points a couple of years back. Can't read too much into that. And then 25 points last year. And then Port won at the MCG by the looks of it. Interesting. Yeah, you can't really read too much on the last 3 matchups. Most sides play each other a bit more regularly than this. So you can't read too much. This is probably a better indicator, the ladder position and the form. Yeah, Port Adelaide got belted last week by Sydney, and Melbourne beat the top side, so I guess that says a lot. I mean, realistically, Melbourne should win this one, but Port Adelaide aren't without a chance. Stats aren't really telling me a lot. Averages. Yeah, it's pretty even, actually. Inside 50s, Melbourne will have more chances, obviously, and more possession, most likely being a better side. I don't think I have to and ah about this. I like Melbourne's season. I want them to keep winning. Maybe potentially finish top 4, but yeah, hopefully finish definitely in the top 6. They're in a good position to do that, and I want to back them in here to win. Melbourne by... what would the margin be? Melbourne by 31 points. And again, it probably will be a bit within 2 kicks, realistically, because Port Adelaide at home are a much more interesting encounter for an away side, but yeah, got to back Melbourne. Did I say, how many did I say? 34, 31? I can't remember. Roughly in the 30s anyway. All right, the final 3 games of the round, and we're heading to Sunday. The first one being the GWS Giants playing host to the West Coast Eagles at NG Stadium, I believe. I haven't got the right page up. Sorry, I wasn't prepared. Yep, NG Stadium. I have to wake up a little bit early to watch this one, but that's fine. It's only 11:40. That's not too bad. That's doable. Last 3 matchups have been 2-1 in the Giants' favour. We did get that kind of miraculous win early in the season at Optus Stadium. Didn't expect that one. It was a seesawing game, but we did get the job done. And the other two games haven't been close. One at home last year and then one away. Two kind of absolute beltings. Then again, the Giants were a different prospect last year, and so are we. We were absolutely dismal last season. We've been a bit more competitive. So I guess I can hope for that to happen again this week and not a blowout. 12th v 16th on the ladder. Well, probably not too much different yet. 2 and 3. They've got a solid win against Port Adelaide away, and they beat the Cats, which was probably their last good win realistically. And the Eagles have been in quite a few games. Yeah, they've been in every game except the Derby. They got absolutely spanked. I mean, we're in it at half time, but yeah, that second half, we might have put the foot down and show why they're the top side. And yeah, the last couple of games we theoretically could have won, which is what you want to see out of a young, up and coming side. Disposal, yeah. Of course, Giants are going to possess the ball a lot more. One of the high disposal teams in the competition. Inside 50s are actually more close for the disposal count. So obviously the Eagles look to be more proactive with the ball, I guess. Try to get it forward. Sometimes that can result just a hack kick that gets rebounded quickly. So mark inside 50s probably, and forward pressure is probably a better stat to look into. Yeah, the Giants' midfield isn't really batting that strongly this year. I mean, what's their clearance stuff? I don't think it was that different from ours. Yeah, pretty much similar. Disposal efficiency, if you're equal with the Eagles in terms of disposal efficiency, you've had a pretty rotten year where we can't possess the ball very well. We're prone to turn the ball over. Possession, yeah, they've obviously probably a lot of handballs actually. If I look down the list, they actually turn the ball over more, the Giants, which is interesting. They're a better tackling side. We're one of the better tackling sides in the competition. So I took myself into picking up a doubleheader against the Giants. They were disappointing losing to a team that hasn't won in like almost 3 months. But the Eagles aren't too far off that record themselves. I think we've lost 8 or 9 in the row now, so we might beat the Gold Coast Suns record for this year. I'll have to pick the Giants, unfortunately. I did want to see at least one more win for the season, and this is probably our best chance because we do play Hawthorn in the last rounds, so I don't really hold much hope for that one. We do turn up at our best and keep the pressure on and use the ball well enough. We could beat the Giants. They're a bit up and down, but then again, I'm just hoping for a close game because the Giants, even though they're sitting 12th and haven't had the best season, they've pantsed quite a few sides, and that's a fear I have in this one. We could get belted, but I'm going to be conservative and say the Giants by 14 points within 3 goals, which has been kind of 3 to 5 goals has been the margin for most of our losses recently. So hopefully it's something that can continue. Every threat of a spanking, though. Now, this is a big matchup. Probably one of the games of the round on paper. Then again, we probably said that about St Kilda and Carlton for last week, and it didn't really pan out that way. But two teams that need wins. Bulldogs pretty much limping to the end of the season. They were finishing the wildcard spot, and a lot of people are saying they'll be out pretty quickly, and that's the way it looks right now. The back line is pretty decimated. The forward line isn't functioning too well. The only thing they can hang the hat on is a midfield. But with Tim English out, they don't tend to win very much. And Mark Pitnet's been in quite good form recently, so he might be able to give Carlton a real advantage. And their midfield's been actually cranking recently. Jagger Smith's been on fire, Sam Walsh, Paddy Cripps, a couple other players rolling through there. Last couple of matchups, 2-1 in terms of for the Western Bulldogs. Obviously, they've been the better side over the last 5 years. I mean, Carlton have had a few good years in between, but yeah, they won earlier this year. Started their run, I think. They beat them by 12. 9th beat 10th. There's only one game between them. Can Carlton leapfrog the Bulldogs? That could probably be a thing, I think. Stats-wise, yeah, the Blues been possessing the ball quite strongly. Yeah, 3 and 2, both of them. And again, Carlton's had 3 in a row. They lost that 2. Well, they had that big run of 7 or 8 wins, and then they had the 2 losses, obviously, against 2 bitter rivals. They wish they'd performed better in, but ever since then, they've been pretty good. obviously beating Brisbane pretty handily. And the Bulldogs, yeah, they 3 wins against teams that were kind of struggling. That Suns game could have been, it was a real coin flip. They could have actually been a side to lose the Suns. Then, yeah, they tried to shut down Fremantle and couldn't get that done. And pretty disappointing against the Roos last Thursday, I believe, or Friday. I can't remember which day that was. Thursday, probably. Yeah, they made a comeback, but they couldn't get it done. Anything to look here? Oh, that tells a lot about Carlton's play. They're that's a very high number of marks. So they like to possess the ball, which you can see if you've watched them play recently. They like to win the ball and chip the ball around, invite the opposition out. They do have quite a few good ball users and good people that can take into contested marks, so they're not worried about going too slingshot crazy. They will attack when they need to, but they'll tend to possess the ball and draw the opposition out. So in this game, they probably will dominate possession. I mean, it's time to go on the Carlton bandwagon, I suppose. As much as I would love the Western Bulldogs to win, I prefer the Western Bulldogs as a club and as a team, and their supporters don't annoy me as much. So I would prefer the Bulldogs to win, but I'm going to have to give Carlton the win, unfortunately. Carlton by a solid 22 points. I will be watching this one intently and hoping the Bulldogs can pull it off. But yeah, Bulldogs are just too top heavy. Their bottom 6 to 10 players don't contribute enough to help them win, and they just rely on Bont and Richards and Norton to play well, and Tim English when he's actually available. And they'll be struggling to get this one done. All right, let's wrap up round 23 with probably an absolute stinker. At least the Bombers get to play at the MCG this time. I mean, the Swans will appreciate a tune up at the MCG ahead of the finals series because they'll have to go there at least once, I suppose. Yeah, they'd probably want a better side to play against, but Essendon's their opponent. What can you say about this? Can you give the Bombers any sort of chance? I mean, they kept it pretty relatively close last year when the Bombers were a much more competitive side. They actually beat them once last year. But then again, Sydney were a bit off. There was a bit of a gap year after that flogging they got in the 24 grand final. They had a bit of an off year. Yeah, 2-1 sank Sydney's way. Actually been fairly close, but yeah, obviously reflection of form. There's no way you can really back Essendon to win this one. It's got to be pretty brief. They won that game against the Giants miraculously. The other Sydney side, does that play into it at all? Probably not. And the Swans, yeah, lost to the Crows and the Dockers in back-to-back weeks, but ever since then, yeah, they belted Port last week, got the job done against the Saints, and belted the Giants stats-wise. I mean, it's probably not even looking at stats. 60 to 40. Bombers don't get the ball inside 50 enough, obviously, by looking at stats. 5 5 clearance is quite a lot. The marks are in favour of the Bombers. Yeah, the Swans usually play that frantic handball game where they try to break the lines with run and handball, which does lower their disposal efficiency as well. They do get a few possessions. And they're higher tackle side, obviously, because when the ball gets turned over, it turns into a absolute logjam where. Because if you kick the ball and it turns over, it's a clear mark, and then the team can get possession. But if a handball and turns into turnover, it's either a throw the goose over the top goal or it's a scramble for both sides to try and get a clear possession. So a high tackle game will ensue there. I mean, let's not stand on ceremony too much. Sydney are going to win and win pretty big. For Essendon fans' sake, hopefully it's a close and somewhat exciting game for you, but yeah, I have to back the old Swans in to win by 61 points. Hopefully it can be within 4 goals, but yeah, Sydney should win by 60 plus. Keep boosting that percentage. Closing in on the Dockers, actually. If the Dockers keep losing, theoretically, the Swans could do it. Theoretically. If the Dockers did have one rather uncomfortable loss, but it won't happen. Click the Swans, and that's my tips for the week. Fremantle, Richmond, Geelong, Brisbane, Hawthorn, Melbourne, GWS, Carlton, and Sydney to win, in my humble opinion. I'll try to watch as many games as I can. I mean, work does interfere with that, unfortunately. Let's have a quick rundown of games I probably will watch, depending on what my chaos subscription looks like. Fremantle Adelaide game, I can watch the whole second half because the game kicks off later, so I'll get home. It'll be half time instead of 3/4 time, which it usually is for the Melbourne games that start a bit earlier. And I have work in the afternoon, so I'll be able to watch the Richmond St Kilda game. I'll probably tune in intermittently, depending how close it is. North Melbourne and Geelong, I won't be able to watch that. Brisbane, yeah, none of these games. Oh, actually, the Port Adelaide Melbourne game, I might tune into that. And the Hawthorn Collingwood, I can watch the last quarter of that. I'll be home at that time after work. But the North Melbourne and Brisbane games I won't be able to watch. And Sunday Ticket, I'll be able to tune into all those games. And I'll probably will do another live stream. I've been doing them recently, the Sunday games. So you can come join and watch that if you see this. Yeah, I do live stream watch alongs for the Eagles games. So the Giants and Eagles games, yeah, I'll more like 99% be doing that one. And depending on how I feel, the Western Bulldogs and Carlton game, I will probably, or it overlaps a little bit. So yeah, I'll try and get those both done. Anyway, thanks again for watching for another week of footy tips and footy talk. Be back to talk the final round of the home waste season next week. And have to wait another 8 months to watch my team play again, the Eagles, because yeah, next week will be our last game. But it'll be an exciting final series, and the wildcard games look like they'll be interesting. Maybe I'll release some extra content. I'll try to release some extra. I've been thinking about reviewing the teams that'll be knocked out, reviewing their seasons, and kind of doing a bit more in-depth stuff related to footy in general, instead of just these tip things. But let me know if you're interested in that kind of thing. I do tend to waffle on with intros, don't I? Just expressing my thoughts, I suppose. But thank you guys. See you later.